Muted. Okay, yeah, here we are. Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
Welcome to the iWonder Sisters TV. I'm Andy.
And I'm Kim. Getting adjusted to the backwardsness of this video.
We're coming to you from absolutely drop-dead gorgeous New Mexico.
Yes.
Where the weather is absolutely fabulous. I have my usual beer.
Yes, it's not love and libations, but there's always love for libations.
Yes. We love to libate.
But this is our weekly podcast, which is now going to be our weekly video. So for those of you who don't know about our weekly podcast, we've been doing it on TalkShoe since February. And so we're very proud of it. We have almost 30 episodes on TalkShoe. And I have uploaded, I think, 2 of them and turned them into static videos. And I'll try to upload some more of them. But if you want to listen to us on TalkShoe, if you go to TalkShoe.com, just search for the iWonder Sisters. Okay. But from this point forward, unless we decide that something else calls us, we really like doing the videos. For some reason, it seems easier. I don't know.
Well, I think for me it's a lot easier because before I was in Studio B, which is actually the bathroom, and it's easier to have a conversation when you're face to face with somebody.
Yeah.
You know when they're going to have a pause,
Yes.
and you can say something. I mean, it's a lot easier, and it's also a lot friendlier.
Yeah, it is. And podcasts, I mean, I commend the people that have been doing them for years. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I enjoy listening to them. And they are a lot of work. They're a lot of work, and they take a lot of commitment. Not that this doesn't, but when you are, as Andy said, not visible, the only thing that you have is your voice. And the quality of sound as well. And so if either one of those is off, it's not as pleasurable for the listener. So kudos to people who do it very successfully for years. So we're going to dive right in, and we're going to talk today about accept it or change it. On our blog, which is iWonderSisterhood.com, we, for the month of October, did a challenge for ourselves, an internal challenge for us to bring even more peace into our everyday lives. And we shared the challenge with you all, with our blog readers and our podcast listeners. And we knew that it wasn't the type of challenge that was going to be something that was easy to do every day. We love those challenges. I've done many. I'm sure Andy has too, that you see online, and it might say 25 days of positive thinking, or a month of positive affirmations. But we decided we wanted to, as we do with all of our spiritual work, to really challenge ourselves, to challenge our the strength of our spirituality, to stretch ourselves, and in doing that, bring more peace into our everyday lives.
It was also challenging our perceptions of ourselves too, and coming to grips with what the reality of us is and what it isn't.
Yes.
And either accepting where you're at, or who you are and what you do, or changing it.
Yeah. And really, those are the only 2 things that we can ever do with our lives, ourselves, our situations, because without accepting it or changing it, what happens is that you live in limbo. And that is one of the reasons for everyday suffering, is people wanting to do something, feeling like something about themselves or their lives needs change, but they don't know how to do it, or they're afraid to begin, um, or it may be something that you simply cannot change, that is a part of who you are and your experience while you're on the planet. And then that's where acceptance comes in, and it's the only way to bring peace. So we're going to talk a bit about that. If you want to do a little diary for yourself, I will leave the page up on our blog for another week. So you'll see the page that says accept it or change it, and you can use my sheets or make your own sheets, and take 30 days to think about the things that you have been dissatisfied with in your life or about yourself, and write them down, deal with them, face them, and decide whether or not you're going to accept it or change it. And that in itself can be a little scary. So we're going to move forward, and I wanted to talk a bit about the challenge itself. Andy and I both wanted to share a part of what we do spiritually for ourselves personally all the time. But certainly this is something that we take with us. Just because it's November doesn't mean that things are not going to come up for both of us, and we have to make a decision whether we're going to accept it or whether we're going to change it. So I mean, it's a lifetime thing. Not just a 30-day challenge, of course. But what 30-day challenges, I think, does best is causes us to have to focus on certain aspects of our lives. And also, for me anyway, it causes me to really commit, even though they may be things that I think about on a spiritual level all the time. If I place something on paper or on the blog, if I share it, it makes it a bit easier for me to commit myself to it. How do you feel about sharing challenges?
I think when things are done on paper for me, they become a bit more, I don't want to say real exactly, but clear, and I'm able to hone in on different aspects of myself and different aspects of my life. And when I write things down, it clarifies things in my mind, and it also, in a way, does make it more real. I mean, because you get it out of you and onto paper, and it becomes something more concrete and less abstract. And so yeah, I agree with you in that.
And for a long time, and I mean, I've heard so many people say that it's important to write things down. Over the past, I would say, 15 years of my life, I've really been consciously like seeking and searching and trying to be better. And I would read so many programs or do things online, and it would say, get a journal and write it down. And for a long time, I thought, I don't need to do that, because even though I love to write, physically, I don't really like to write. There is something about that. I've been like that since I was a kid. So I avoided it, and I was able to, in my mind, feel as if I really didn't need to do that. And I have to say, in the last year, that I've begun writing things down. And like, I have these books, I mean, I've filled up a couple of them, different ones for specific things. And it has helped me more than I can even express. It's real what people say, that if you write it down, it brings it from here onto something tangible. And that tangible energy for me I think has really changed the way that I look at that process.
Yeah,
You know.
I've always written things down, and it's always helped me to clarify in my mind what's going on, to focus on things that need attention, and to weed out the things that are extraneous, that are cluttering up my head
Indeed.
and making things more difficult for me.
Yeah. And when I as we both did in our own way, we shared some of our accept it or change it thoughts on our blog. But as Andy says, she always writes things down. My cousin Mo, who is a part of our family, has always been that way as well. She's always been the one to keep a journal, always since we were young teenagers, and she still does it today. So I'm really finding that for those of you who might be like I was, that you kind of feel like when spiritual teachers um, say it's important for you to write things down or to designate a journal for your spiritual growth or whatever it is that you're working on, you might feel like it's a little airy fairy, but it really isn't. It really makes sense.
It's actually empowering, because when you write down what's going on in your head and in your life, you actually are in the act of creating it.
Yes.
And that's a very empowering feeling. And not only does it make those things more tangible, but it makes them more a part of you. You put yourself in the position of taking responsibility for them, because when you write it down, you're creating it.
Yes, yes, indeed. And and now, I mean, it wasn't that I didn't believe it before. I just didn't get it, and we all have different ways of getting things. Like Andy knows that, I have a very sort of practical side to me where things need to make sense. I need to see it working and understand for myself why.
And nothing makes sense in my life. I don't make sense. My life doesn't make sense. I don't need anything practical. No.
Yeah, I really do have that aspect of myself, and so when I see that it works, when I try it and see that it works for me, then I'm much more motivated to continue. And now it's actually, I mean, I write down things that I think about every day, thoughts, lists, things I see on TV, like Lenovo Yoga. um, all kinds of things, notes to our podcast, and also both of us have, special places where we put things that we're working on, like the tarot and things like that. So it's really become, and now actually I don't feel so stressed with the physical writing of it too. So I just wanted to share that it's important to write things down, and if you don't know why, you would need to try it like I did. So so we'll move right along. So I'm gonna talk about a bit um, one aspect of accept it or change it. I'm going to ask Andy if she would tackle the other. So first, I want to give the question: why should we accept it? If there's something about you, your circumstances, your life, your job, relationship, whatever it may be, that you really are not feeling comfortable with, that if someone were to ask you, oh, if you could change anything about your life, what would it be? You would put something in that space. So, why accept it? What would be the reasons that you would have to accept it, Andy? And why accept it? Why can't you just go on until you're 85 and mourn it?
Well, I'm going to make this a little personal, because it's easier for me to explain when I'm sharing. Um, I was always not always, but for a long time I was very anorexic, and I was a runner, and I didn't eat, and I was very, very thin. And then in my mid to late 40s, my metabolism changed, and I actually felt my body thicken. And then a few years later, I was put on medication that made me so tired I couldn't run. And then I was put on medication that actually put 80 pounds on me, of which I have not lost. So I've had to come to grips with the fact that I'm not going to be anorexic anymore. I'm not going to weigh 89 pounds. I smashed up my ankle, so I'm probably not going to be able to ever run again. And I had to deal with the fact that this is the way I look. This is me. And if I don't like it and continue to go through my life not liking it, not accepting it, I'm going to put myself through hell. And constantly be frustrated, constantly be have low self-esteem, constantly be critical of myself, and it's very detrimental to your health, both mental and physical. So I thought long and hard about the accepting part, and yes, I mean, I could probably drop a few pounds if I walked more and stuff like that, but I'm never going to be what I was. And I have to accept it because I can't change it. And um, I've actually, over the last couple of months, looked at myself in the mirror and come out of the bathroom and said to Kim, "I'm cute. I'm adorable." And really meant it.
Yeah.
And 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 that's very unusual for me. I mean, even when I was a beautiful young girl, I never thought I was beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's carried over into my later life, but um accepting where I'm at eliminates so much unnecessary suffering. Suffering that you bring on yourself, and that is easy to dispel if you just come to terms with the issue that you find challenging.
Indeed. Yeah. And I think that it's important. Andy and I talked about this when we first started doing our blog and our podcast. And she is naturally a much more open, lay it all out there person, and I am evolving into an open person, but I come from a space of being more protective than open as far as my sharing goes. But I said to Andy, um, I'm really in such a place that it's more important to me that other people feel that they are not alone in whatever it is that life is bringing them than for me to feel that I need to protect myself from people knowing too much about me or feeling like it's going to give people some sort of ammunition against me. I actually no longer feel that way, but for a very long time, that is the reason why I never really got personal. But I have really, really opened up and changed a whole lot in that way. And I feel like for what we do, for what we want to share, for the type of spiritual tools and lessons that we want to impart, we have to be personal. There are certain things about ourselves that in our experiences that we must be willing to share. And so I think that that's what really makes what we do and what we offer on our blog and through our conversations, our podcasts, that really makes us unique in that way. And like Andy, I mean, there's so many things that I would say, like most people, I wish I was this, I wish I was that. Um, for me, and I feel like I'm still accepting this. All of my life I've always been kind of, a person that really loved to do a lot of things. And for a long time, when I became an adult, and I got into the work world, I became really interested in, success and people who were successful, and started reading a lot of books and talking to a lot of people who were like business mentors of mine. And they always advised me that I need to focus, I need to rein it in. Kim, you can't do everything, In this lifetime, you pick something and you go with it. And if you don't use that method of uh, devotion to one thing, you're never going to be successful at anything. And I believed it for a very long time, because for many people, that is what works for them. So we see a lot of proof of that. But I have found these years later, and I'm 47 now, that I'm really unable to do that. I really have to accept that I'm a person that will probably always like to do a little of this, a little of that, a little of this. It makes me happy. It makes me feel purposeful. It makes me feel joy in my life. I can't do everything. I think of stuff all day long. I mean, but I can't do it all. That is a part of acceptance as well, because I have to say to myself, this is me. My brain works a certain way. It always has. I do take medication to reel it in a bit, so that when I have assignments, Andy and I are both freelance writers. We get assignments every week, and we have deadlines. So I really need to, at some point during the week, focus on those things. Also, we spend a lot of time on our blog, changing it, shifting it, writing things, adding things to it, all of that. Putting videos on, taking videos off, all these things, sharing information about new things that we're learning. And I really wanted to be able to focus, to commit myself to doing what I needed to do for our business. So in that way, the medication helps, but it doesn't change me a lot, and I'm still much more scattered than a lot of people would want to be or be able to handle. But I've grown to like that about myself. I love the fact that I have a lot of interests, a lot of passions, and that I can choose certain ones at certain times in my life to explore and to be a part of. I also accept the fact that I cannot do everything, and I can't do too many things well. So when I try to do too many things, something goes lacking. So it has taught me a lot about what's important to me. iWonder is very important to me, so really nothing gets in the way of that. It's always here. But there are other things that I do that I enjoy and would like to grow. So all of us are not going to be people that have one focus, or even be able to focus on one thing, and just be driven for that one thing until that one thing becomes $1 billion business. It's not the life that that is for all of us to have. And so that was a huge part of acceptance for me. And every day, as Andy, I'm sure, wakes up, it's an ongoing process. Every day, something happens, or I do something or forget something, and I have to accept that maybe I had too much on my plate. Maybe my to-do list was too long for me, and I have to shift that. So it's an ongoing process. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But very freeing. So what happens when you decide to change it? And both of us have, we have those experiences, and we have both made decisions to make changes. Um, and I just want to say this, and I'm sure Andy has a lot to say about this because we really, really want to stress this. There are so many things online, videos. There's so many books, so many seminars. You know, really simplifying this human experience. um, Saying that you can do anything, nothing is impossible, you can have anything you want, you can be anything you want. Um, and what we do is talk about the steps. We talk about the work that's involved, the shift that needs to occur on the inside in order to make changes on the outside. And those shifts very rarely, if ever, happen overnight. Our circumstances that we live in, the things that surround us today, are because of thoughts we forgot we had. They aren't from this morning's thoughts. This morning's thoughts will create other tomorrows. But wherever you are today, you have to know that it comes from a million thoughts that you've had previous to this time. And so we want people to be encouraged and not discouraged by what we're saying, because you can change your life. Both of us have done it more times than once. You can change your life. You can change it drastically. But there are shifts and steps that you must take in order to do that. And they're all not going to feel great. You're not going to be like jumping up, high-fiving all the time through the process. But if you want the change bad enough, you'll know, you'll feel within yourself that it's worth it. So I just wanted to ask Andy to just chime in on that. You know that yes, you can have what you want. We can change our lives. We can change our careers. We can change our circumstances. But what does it really mean to change it? It doesn't happen overnight.
What what changing external circumstances is all about is really changing yourself internally.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do that, your external circumstances will never change.
Yeah.
So you have to go within and search yourself for your desires, your hopes, your dreams, your talents, um, the things that touch you. Um,
Son.
yeah, um, and and that's where it starts. It doesn't start by, like what we did, make a move from Florida to New Mexico. Um, that move was in many ways long planned, but but you can't just make a physical change and expect that inside you're going to feel different.
Yes.
It's got to start on the inside. I used to work in mental health, and I once worked for Goodwill. We had a program for the homeless, a resident program for the homeless. And one of the things that was lacking in that program, taking these people off the streets who had been living in the woods and sleeping on benches for years and years, one of the things that the program lacked was therapy, talk therapy, and getting at the root of why they were on the streets to begin with. And you can change someone's circumstances like that, put them in a residence, but if you don't address what's going on inside, when that residency is up,
Yes.
it's going to happen all over again.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel about change.
Yeah.
I feel that it's got to start within, and once you tackle yourself within, you can pretty much do anything.
Yes. Yes, exactly, exactly, and
And
that.
I will say too that it's going to be challenging and it's going to be painful, and it takes a great deal of courage to go on that journey. Um, is it worth it? We're here to say that it is.
It sure is. Yeah.
Um, but some people don't have the constitution for that kind of self-evaluation and self-scrutiny, and and that's okay too. But then you have to come to terms with that
Mhm.
and accept where you're at and accept that this is the way it's going to be.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It goes right back to acceptance. I mean, these two things are pretty much what's in our power to do, and I think that's just like so profound. As Andy and I have talked about when she was doing that type of work, and it's astonishing to me that you could have a program that is supposed to be helping people get off the streets and out and free from addictions, and not have, like 80% of the focus be not on moving them physically from this place to that place, but helping them to transform and heal all of that, as Andy said, because they will all end up back where they were.
A lot of them did.
Yes. And for those of us from big cities, we know that. I've worked with people that had family members on the street. There are a million reasons why people are in those situations, and so taking them all and placing them where you think they would want to be, with a shower and all these different things, is not it's not the type of transformation that's deep and lasting whatsoever.
Right.
Um, so I know that it's not something that sounds great, or that people really are eager to hear when we say that it's not going to happen overnight. But as they talk about, when people have a lot of weight to lose and they're hard on themselves and they're like they want to lose 100 pounds in a year, and people will tell them, doctors will say, but you didn't gain it in a year. You did that over time. And all of our lives are like that. Every aspect of our life is the way that it is because of a whole lot of things, and a lot of them in our power. A lot of them had to do with the decisions that we made.
Right.
So you need to accept that, as well. And which is also something that's hard for a lot of people. They don't want to take on the responsibility of saying, somewhere along the way, I made a decision that got me here, you know. But that's the reality of it. And the great thing about taking that responsibility and putting it on and really getting comfortable with it is because when you're in places, in a space in life where you really want to be, a space where you're enjoying life, where you can create, where you can be purposeful, you can say again, because of a decision that I made, this is where I am. But it doesn't go just one way. um, so we really, really just want to stress that. Now we're talking about change. So if you, during this process, write down something that you want to change, that is changeable. Um, we also want to say, like, don't do anything that's going to be discouraging. So if you make a decision to change something, I personalize it. If I make a decision to change something, I'm going to put down steps in which I can reasonably do things that are going to shift me from where I am to where it is that I want to be. I'm not going to expect to wake up tomorrow and be different. I have a very difficult time focusing for long periods of time. I have a difficult time with meditation. I don't know if I'm ever going to be a person that enjoys meditating or really feels the benefit of it, but I leave it open. But as for right now, I have a very difficult time um, being still, in many ways, physically still, mentally, still. I always feel like I should be doing something, doing something, doing something. So for me, what I have decided to do is that I will find music. I love music, and I absolutely love YouTube. So I'll find music, and I have found some music. Wrote the things down. I tend to like a lot of like melancholy, very lyrical. I'm a songwriter's girl. Um, and be able to listen to something that's not gonna take over my mind, you know, um, but it'll put me in a space for me that's neutral, a space where I am not necessarily actively trying to accomplish something. I'm not trying to finish a blog post or upload a picture.
Where you can just be.
Just be. Yes. And I, for right now, and this may always be, um, need to do that with sound. Um, so 5 minutes is all that I can accomplish at this point. And I don't do it every day. I like to do it at night. I'm a nighttime person, so you have to learn yourself and know yourself and stop trying to be what you're not. That's a huge step in making any kind of change. Just stop trying to be where you're not. So I'm not one to in the mornings, like Angie, want to be up and in nature and or meditate in the morning. I'm just not mentally there. But at nighttime, that peace comes over me. That stillness comes over me naturally, and so I get more in a meditative state. I'm a nighttime person, but this is something that I had to learn about myself
And accept.
and accept it. Exactly.
In making changes, you go through periods of acceptance.
Yes.
When you want to change something, you have to take responsibility for the decisions you made that brought you to the place that you want to change. And in taking the responsibility, you have to accept that you made those decisions and that they're not wrong or right, they just are. And they're in the past, and you accept them, and now you're here.
Yes. Yes. And Gary, Gary Zukov said something. I was watching him on a show years and years ago, and I'm sure it was Oprah. Um, but he said something that has really stuck with me, and it's like so encouraging to my soul, and I like to share it often. But he said, within every turn, there's always another right turn. There is no such thing as a wrong turn. Like people will say, I made a wrong turn in life. Yes, okay, so maybe you didn't like where that turn took you, but now, as Andy said, that you're here, you can always go left or right. You can turn around if you want to. So whatever decisions you make, like sometimes people get really caught up in being afraid to make any decision. Andy, you talked about that a little bit, I think maybe last night or this morning, about being afraid to even make a decision, to say, I'm going to stay or I'm going to go.
Yeah, some people get so entrenched in what becomes familiar, even if it's detrimental to their physical and mental health. We have a friend who wants to move to New Mexico, like we did, and she is stuck.
Yes.
And we have come to believe that her stuckness is something that she chooses.
Yeah.
And that she's going to either have to accept that her stuckness is a choice,
yeah,
or take steps to unstick herself.
Exactly.
Because right now she's making herself suffer terribly.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why, one of the main reasons that I think we want to share, accept it or change it, because I know that I'm about always having more everyday peace. You know, huge things in life, huge happenings and all that. I love, sure, but most of the time we live in the space of everydayness. Okay, so we're not always expanding our career. We're not always packing to go to Japan for 3 weeks. We're not always in those. We're not always moving to New Mexico from Florida. Um, so most of our time, our life is spent living in the nowness of everything. And so I'm all about the quality of the everyday.
Mhm.
You know, um, I want every day to feel safe, to for me to have a level of peace within myself, which allows me to handle the crap that comes along. Um, so that is really important to us. And so when we talk about suffering, as Andy said, we are talking about probably uh, one of the main reasons why human beings suffer, and those are those things that we take on ourselves, those decisions we don't want to make, those things we're too afraid to change or accept, all of that everyday suffering. That is certainly not like a lot of suffering on the planet, but probably is a lot of the suffering on the planet.
It causes a lot of disease.
Yes, and yes, indeed,
It
exactly.
causes a lot of disease.
About disease in many ways. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we really wanted to really stress that yes, both of us have made many changes, drastic changes. I mean, before we met each other, I mean, both of us have been three different people. Um, so we do know that all things are possible, but we want you to know, because we want people to be happy. We live a very happy life, and that's not because we don't have challenges. It's not because there aren't difficult decisions that we make. It's not because there are certain things that we deny ourselves. We live through all of that experience, but yet it's still a very, very happy, peaceful experience, and we want nothing more than for other people to have their own version of that.
Mhm.
And it's hard to do when you have unrealistic expectations and you don't do the work. I wish there was another word for work.
There is no other word for work, and that's something that we all have to accept,
Yeah.
because that ain't gonna change. The word is work, and it's work on self,
Yes. Yes, indeed.
which is the most challenging work you'll ever have.
You're not kidding. If you can uh, get a level of comfort, like when Angie said, in really, taking a look at yourself all the time, being able to really look and see what's in the mirror, like we're talking about the mirror of the soul, really. If you can get comfortable in that, things will flow a lot easier for you. If you can get comfortable in not always expecting or wanting or needing to see only the pretty side of yourself, if you can get comfortable with that, you can see everything in you, the light, the shadow, sometimes the ugly things that we look back on and we say, wow, I would never do that now. But we have to look at it. If you can get comfortable with that, the whole process of life and making changes becomes a lot easier, because you're not afraid. You're not afraid of what you're going to see when you look at yourself.
And if you are afraid, you do it anyway.
Do it anyway. And eventually it gets better and better. Because there's no way to eradicate fear either. So we're sorry to tell you that. We don't believe in the eradication of fear. I mean,
fear is a great motivator.
It is. It's very useful.
And walking through fear is better than trying to dismiss it or get rid of it or talk yourself out of it. You just sort of take yourself by the hand and walk through the flames.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you will definitely feel the difference in that the more that you do it, because I'll tell you, it's easier to, as Andy said, just walk through the fire and be afraid than it is to sit and try to get rid of the fear before you do something. Like you want to not be afraid before you take another job, or move to another place, or quit your job, or get a divorce, get married. You want to not be afraid before you do those things. And the majority of the time that's not the way that it's going to be. And so most of the actions that we take are with fear by our side. So you have to be comfortable with that. um, so I'm gonna move along. We're doing really good here. Okay. So I want to talk about now, before we forget, about creating, when you decide you're going to change something, creating goals that, and some people might not like this. You know, I'm not saying that you don't create and set high standards for yourself, your life. I'm not saying that you don't say, oh, I really want to, I want to have a TV show one day or whatever. You should, if that's what you really want. What we're saying is that, nobody gets a master's degree just because they sit and think they want one. Okay? They have to apply. They have to first of all have a bachelor's. That reminded me of something funny Angie said a long time ago. But you need a bachelor's first before before you get a master's. So there are steps that you take. No, when we were in Florida, Andy, is an actress and a singer, and she performed professionally for many years. And but you see a natural part of what everybody does in them. So so when we were in Florida, not knowing when we could come here or not. We just really didn't know. We knew that we would do it, but we felt as though we needed to maybe save money or whatever. So Angie and I both go out for this job. And so when Angie came out of her second interview, she's like, oh, I don't think he likes that or whatever. And she said he asked me what my goals were for the next 3 years. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you said I would like to get a master. and he said, do you have a bachelor? And she said no. so so I had to get that out, or I would have kept laughing about it. So what I'm saying is,
I'm petting the dog, by the way, so that's what I'm doing.
What I'm saying is you need a bachelor's before you can get a master's.
The whole point is that when you decide you're going to make a change, you decide what the long-term goal is for sure. But then you set yourself achievable goals.
Yes.
Small steps towards the larger goal. And every day you accomplish something more that will take you towards that long-term goal. But if you set yourself goals that are not within your reach, you're going to be doomed to fail, and that's when you're going to allow yourself to say, "Oh, the hell with it! I give up.
Yeah.
I can't do it," and that's how people fail.
Yeah.
They bring it on themselves. They always say take baby steps, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
You set yourself achievable goals, things that are reasonable. Oh, there's Chloe.
Yeah. Oh, we have our Chloe is in master.
You set yourself reasonable goals that you can reasonably achieve, And each time you achieve one, you move yourself closer and closer to the long-term goal. And that makes all the sense in the world to me. I mean, most people want to go from point A to point Z
Yeah.
in one fell swoop, and there is no long jump long enough to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, think about it this way too, because if you set um, small goals for yourself every week and so on, everyday goals, you have so much more to just jump up and down about because you'll meet them and then you go, yay, and that will strengthen you and motivate you to continue. If you set a huge goal and miss, then you're like, oh, I'm not meant to be a writer, and all these other things that we tell ourselves, all because things get a little bit difficult. So enjoy the little baby steps, because the more little baby steps you take, the more reasons you'll have to congratulate yourself and to feel good about what you're doing,
You'll feel more and more empowered with each accomplishment.
Exactly. Yes, indeed.
And with each accomplishment comes the motivation to continue.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So, so that is our first episode of Conversations with the iWonder Sisters on YouTube.
Yay!
Yay! So, it's been really, really cool. We just want to thank you guys. Our blog, again, is iWonderSisterhood.com. So please check us out there. And we're on Twitter at iWonderSisters as well. So we hope that you join us. Also, we would like to say we really want people to either subscribe to this YouTube and or subscribe to our blog, because somewhere between now and Christmas we're going to be doing a couple giveaways, and so we're going to be choosing from subscribers. So there'll be a couple samples of essential oils from doTERRA, and some other things. We'll put together some really cool things for you to maybe be able to create a space for yourself at home, candle and things like that. So subscribe to us here and or iWonderSisterhood.com, so that you can be in that number. So let's see if we can get Chloe on.
Okay, hold this.
So this is our Zen Master Chloe. Chloe's one of our babies. We have 3 rescues. Oh, Chloe! Look, Chloe! Say hi. Say hello. I'm Zen Master Chloe. Chloe's on Twitter at Zen Master Chloe. Chloe the mother doll. Yes. And she tweets all about rescuing animals, being kind to one another, being kind to our furry friends on the planet too, and adopting and not shopping. There's so many animals out here that need a home. There's really no reason to ever go into a pet store and pay $1,000 for an animal. I mean, somebody will always buy those animals. The animals that need your love and your care are the ones who are in these shelters. And as Andy always says, honestly, we they give us so much more than we could ever give them. So they make us smile.
Hello, baby girl.
So we thank you guys for sharing in our life and times here. So we'll say good night from beautiful Ribera, New Mexico. This beautiful horse ranch we get to live on is so awesome, and we hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, buddies. Yay, we made it without a glitch.